And the sort of things that I think culturally that we're in a great position to influence as a coach are things like the values. So we're talking about the values and the breakers, but establishing values that aren't just words on a wall, but they're actually something that you break down and you try to live all the time. And one of the key values that we have in an All Black thing is grateful. We've found it's one of the most powerful values you can have for our team, is people coming into our environment and being grateful for the opportunity and treating every day as if that it's a privilege to be there. They're grateful for being there, and it is amazing how that philosophy just changes your whole outlook about how you go about your work. And so we've got a whole culture around us of young people who are coming through our young system. I'm just talking about rugby because I know that, but are coming through our rugby system. And unfortunately, with all the players come parents, and I'm sure there's none of you here like this, but there's a sense of little Johnny and little Sally, they need this, and they're good enough, and they deserve this, and so suddenly the hand starts going out, and they want a bit of this, and they want a bit of that, instead of the hand going up and saying, how can I help? And there's a little bit of a sense of entitlement, and we're finding, because we're picking players younger and younger, we're having to break that down, because if we don't break that down, they won't survive under the pressure, because it becomes all about them. Whereas being grateful means you've gone past that and you've realised, well, there's actually 10 people out the door that could probably do this job. I've been fortunate enough to get the opportunity, and I'm going to make the most of it by appreciating it every single day. And so us as coaches, we need to keep driving that. And I think us in society, we've got to keep telling people what we're grateful for. There's so much bad news, but to have an appreciative heart for things, I think just changes outlooks. So that was one thing that I wrote down. And with, like, another thing that we have that I love about professional sport is we've got a principle called brutal honesty. And so we want to have honest conversations. That's one of our stated goals, is that we want to have honest conversations in our team. And if there's ever an issue, if it's not spoken about, it becomes an elephant in the room, and it will bite you when you're least expecting it, and least can afford it to bite you. And so we've learned the power within our team from coaches to make sure we drive honest conversations, which and unfortunately puts us under massive pressure initially as leaders, isn't it? Because we've actually now got to make sure that amongst ourselves we're having those conversations. And if things aren't going right, we've got to be brave enough to actually say, okay, well, we need to front foot this and have a conversation about it. And if we expect players to have honest conversations with each other, then we've got to set the tone for that. And yet we see that as part of our responsibility as coaches. To mentor, that is the way that you grow, and that is the way that you actually get a team really united. And the church should be the best organisation in the world at those.
That's good.
My brother's heard me say that. But you should be, we should be. And yet most churches I've been in aren't, because we're worried about offending. And I know you've got to have honest conversations with a bit of tact, and your organisation's probably volunteer, whereas ours will just flick them out if they don't listen. But the reality is, there's a truth in it, I think. Yes?
Do the players, are they encouraged to be brutally honest with the coaches? And are they willing to do that if they're not afraid that it might cost them their place in the team?
Yeah, look, some of them do. We encourage all of them. But clearly there'll be some that are too scared. And there are some that won't trust that we actually really mean what we say. Because we're the ones that hold their future in their hands and their mind. And so therefore, and that's where the acid comes on us as leaders, isn't it? Because it's quite intoxicating, that concept of you hold the power and that you're important. it makes you feel good, and it's good for your ego, isn't it? And yet that's the worst possible thing you can actually ever have. And so we've got to forever fight in our leadership is to make sure that our ego doesn't start dominating. And so as long as we stay really grounded and we appreciate that our job is just part of the group. And yet we've got a leadership role in our group, but that doesn't make it any more special than the person who's the physio, the nutritionist, the player, whatever. Just a different role we've got. And we've got to keep sending that message down that everyone's valued and that when it comes to sharing your ideas or thoughts, everyone's equal. But does it happen overnight? No, clearly it doesn't. But we have to make sure we're constantly promoting that environment that people are able to do that. And some people will do it in a group, some people will never do it in a group. And some people will come and do it one-on-one, some people will use one of their mates to give you the message. But at the end of the day, we just got to keep encouraging an environment that we have more and more of those honest conversations. And so I'll show you how that shows. So, like we just have we show a clip on the game, and let's say we've made a mistake on the game, and say, okay, Sam Kane, why the heck did you do that? Well, why did you make that decision? And his answer might be, well, actually, I've got no idea. I don't know. Just at the moment, I panicked, I had nothing to do. That's what I mean about an honest conversation. It's not just you did that, it's how you felt. And an honest conversation is an All Black saying, actually, I had no idea what to do in this situation. And so I panicked, made a mistake, they scored a try, whatever it is. And so when we hear that, okay, Sam, thanks for that, that's awesome. Now, let's talk about what Sam should have done, or how we could help Sam in that situation. And so that's how you try to gear those conversations. And funny enough, we think it's not about making people feel good. Remember, for us, everything's about how good are you going to perform on Saturday. But we find we get a bigger growth in performance from our team as if we have that environment where you've got a lot of vulnerability, people saying, this is what I don't know, okay, how can we help you? Whereas if you have people that are staunch and don't make themselves vulnerable, never tell you as a leader what they don't know or what they can't do, then I think you're in trouble. Because the time that you find out what they can't do or can't handle is when they're under pressure and it'll explode in your face and you end up with a mess. Whereas you'd rather have that conversation in an environment where you're safe. So that's, does that make sense? The other thing about the culture stuff is, I've spoken about the values, and I'll just whip through a few that I really enjoy. The next one is discipline, is that our experience is that our society now is sort of anti-discipline in so many ways, anti-boundaries. Boundaries are inhibitive. They stuff up creativity, they annoy people because they can't do what they want. There's a whole lot of things about it. And so, whereas we believe in defining boundaries and we work on our boundaries as being, what's the best thing for this team? What are the things that if individuals don't behave like this, it's going to affect the team. And so, our general feeling is that, and this won't surprise you, but and there's a quote like a river without banks is called a flood. And if you want to get a high performance team and you want to achieve at a high level, you have to define what the banks of the river are. You have to define some areas that this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. And with the definition of discipline comes consequences. And so how you dish out consequences becomes vital. And so, like we're really proud of our culture in the All Blacks, but we have some stuff ups, and the good thing about the stuff ups is when we have them, you know about them. And so they're very public. And so we know the player's going to get thrown under the bus anytime there's a stuff up. But our stance is, it's also a massive opportunity to show forgiveness. It's a massive opportunity to show that there are consequences, but consequences don't have to be personal either. It's not about you as a person. You've just made a mistake. It's outside how our team operates, so with that comes a consequence. And so let's man up, face your consequence, do it, and then we expect you to come back to work and do your job. And it's actually creating a process of dealing with mistakes that we think that if you do that right, you build dignity, you build the strength of the team, and you really have strong definitions of what the boundaries and who you are as a group. And so, you know, I'd encourage you in your leadership and in your coaching and all that, not to be afraid of those sort of conversations, because I think they're powerful ones. They're where you get real clarity about who you are and what you stand for when you actually say, well, this is it, this is our expectations of behaviour or attitude, and when you cross that line, this is where we have to deal with it. Because it ain't actually about you, it's about the group, it's about the ministry, it's about the team, whatever you is. And you've got to, if it means that much to you, you've got to stand up for it, even when individuals cross a line. And so that's all part of it. There's another thing culturally that I love, which is, I don't know if anybody's read Jim Collins' book, but he's got the thing called a 20-mile march, which is, I think it was Shackleton, is the way he got to the South Pole, is that there was two of them racing, and I think Scott was one and Shackleton was the other, if I get that right, but Shackleton just went 20 miles a day, and there's some days that he felt like he could have gone 30, but there's some days he felt like he could have gone 10. But what he did is he maintained, he said 20 miles is what this team can do in a normal tough situation. That's what he did. So he'd stop, rest, and he'd just carry on. And so he learned the discipline of just getting through and just doing a really good day's work and then stopping. And whereas the other dude, he made the sun shining, we're going to go 35 miles. And that was really good. But then the next day he's sick because he's worked too hard, so he can only go 5. And so we're culturally trying to create an environment that every day you're doing honest day's work. And we try not to work our guys too hard mentally. We try not to have meetings after dinner, even though we're in hotels and it's easy to do. We try to give them breaks away from the game, and because you don't want to kill people with intensity, but we also love them learning the discipline of, you need to do that today. If you don't do that today, we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. And so that 20-mile stuff, that's learning how to catch and pass. That's your basics. That's learning what can I do today to be a little bit fitter. And the discipline of people focusing on, okay, I've got certain things that I have to do today to sharpen my role. And then they've actually got to achieve those things each day. And they've got to be accountable for those things. And we reckon that's a real powerful cultural thing that we've got that means that when we need something special under intense pressure, they're really confident because they've done it every day. So, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Is that relevant? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the final thing that I think as coaches that we can impart on our team, and there's obviously a lot more, but the final thing I want to talk about is you've got to be willing to learn. And I think as leaders, coaches, we've got to be the best learners. And we have to have an attitude that you want to learn something so that tomorrow you can be better. Because ironically, isn't that what we're trying to do with the people we're leading and coaching? And yet, if we start to get to the point that we start thinking about learning ourselves, then what do we become? Stale. So in effect, I think you become stale. And I'll use the word teacher, even though I know teachers still learn. But you become someone that every day all you're really doing is telling someone else what you already know. And what a boring world to live in. And not only that is that I think what actually happens is that the people that we're supposed to be leading, they start to realise that the messaging now is exactly the same as the messaging last week, the week before, the week before. And there's no freshness about it. And so that concept of always learning and how we're going to get better and better, we think is a vital one for us, for the life of the group.